Clash Royale analysis video. And today we are featuring Dread Unlock on the channel. He was nice enough to join and tell me some tips and tricks, along with sharing some replays for us to look at. Some tips he told me for this deck, which in my opinion is pretty hard to play unless you know exactly how to play it, are, first of all, he will never make the first move in a matchup. The only thing he will do is react, and so he plays very reactively with this deck. The only things he will ever place as first play will be Knight and Valkyrie. Those he will place around the 230 mark if the opponent hasn't placed anything. He always protects his Firecracker at the bridge, so he'll place a tank like a Valkyrie or a Knight in front of it to protect it while it's defending, which is very useful. Also, he does that to eliminate the chance of having a hand of only tank ground targeting units, which is very bad, especially against lots of cycle matchups. He also wants to kill other people's win conditions with his barbarians, so he will sometimes in fireball matchups bait out the fire with the fireball with the Firecracker, and then he will place the barbarians against their win condition. And the last thing about this deck, the rocket is his trick play. He normally saves it until the end, and so that when he uses it, his opponent doesn't know he's had it. So, let's go into the first replay. For this matchup, he told me he always, against Mortar, plays RG in the back once he's defended the Mortar, because the Mortar deck has a better cycle than he does. So they'll be able to, if he only uses his Royal Giant to counter their Mortar, they can get back to their Mortar before he has his Royal Giant back in hand. So let's start the match. He allows them to cycle Skeletons in the back because that's not a play that he needs to react to. They place a quick Mortar. He uses a Valkyrie plus a Firecracker to defend that. Now he can place a Royal Giant after this because he'll have it in his hand. He cleanly counters the Mortar. And then, like he's told the tip, he always plays the RG in the back so that they have to do something to defend it, which is normally overplay or use their Mortar, which completely counters their fast cycle. The two main defensive tank cards are Valkyrie and Knight. He uses those to basically defend any mid to high elixir tanks or support cards. The arrows are his only spell, but he will use them when needed to defend any swarm units, unless he uses his Valkyrie's splash or the other two support cards, which both have splash damage as part of them. His opponent now does not have the Mortar back in cycle because they had to defend with the Mortar, which is the whole point of him placing a Royal Giant in the back, because they have to defend it with something. So as long as they don't have it in their hand, which he counts their elixir and knows what their hand is, then he can place that without having to worry. See there, he just baited out their Firecracker. With the Firecracker, he just baited out their Fireball. That's going to help a lot. Royal Giant in the back again. They're going to place a defensive Mortar because they don't want to overplay and get countered. That defeats the purpose. Now they won't have a win condition or a defensive building to stop his Royal Giant unless they outcycle him. Also, shout out to Dread_CR on Twitter. I told him I'd shout him out, and I'll put a little clip while I'll show his Twitter. So they place a defensive Mortar on top of the already placed Royal Giant. The opponent is cycling their cards back, and now he can play his Rocket because it's been kind of not used for any support card killing plus tower damage the whole match. And so he uses his Rocket to basically just get free damage that they didn't expect. With any support card in this deck, Dread will basically will place a tank in front of it of either a Knight or Valkyrie. That creates a counter push to defend and then have to be played something against before it goes to the tower. It's a close match so far, but his rocket can basically just take out everything. So yeah, 8 elixir worth of HP at least push just got killed with 6 elixir. As he's up on elixir, he has to cycle a Knight in the back because you don't want to be leaking elixir with this deck. Every bit of elixir counts in this deck because otherwise your tank cards don't mean anything. The Musketeers defended, so now there's going to be a counter push with a Royal Giant in the back. And so for this video, I'm going to be doing 3 replays of him, and then I'll do a classic challenge attack and just try out the deck. So now in overtime, he has the damage advantage because of the rocket. He's using the rocket to basically play against their fireball cycle, which won't work against his barbarians. So he is trying to cycle back to the rocket, and then he basically wins the match. A close one, but a good win that basically showed how to play against Mortar, and also the Royal Hogs are a hard counter by his multiple swarm killers. So on to the next one. Okay, starting off the second match, he gave me some tips for this matchup. He first makes sure to bait out their fireball with his firecracker, because then he can defend their Royal Giant with his barbarians. That's very important, because otherwise the Royal Giant can go basically get multiple shots in the tower if the barbarians are killed by their fireball. Also, he makes sure to save one of his swarm cards for their combination of Fisherman and Hunter. Let's start the match. This deck, the deck the opponent is using, is a popular deck right now. Like, I'm not sure what the use rate is, but it's very high. And so this deck's very important to know how to counter with this with Dread Unlock's deck. He reacts to their Fisherman with a Knight, so that when they do use the Fisherman against the Knight, it will just kill the Fisherman. He plays an offensive Royal Giant because they just use their Fisherman, which is one of the main things you need to do to basically take into account your starting hand and then exploit that when they use a card without thinking about what you have as your deck. So he just got an easy 1,500 damage because the player played their Fisherman before they knew he had Royal Giant. That's one of the great things about this deck. It's not a popular meta deck, and so it can basically trick most players that haven't seen it before. He cycles a Valkyrie in the back because he knows that there's no things that will hard counter this Valkyrie or that he needs to kill the Valkyrie. He needs to expand his cycle. That's why he placed 2 tank guards, so they can get back to his barbarians and also maybe bait out a fireball with his firecracker. You can see him do that multiple times throughout this matchup. He uses his firecracker to bait out the fireball because that's very important to basically to stop the killing of the barbarians. The arrows also help a ton against multiple support cards if they're all going across the bridge. And so he'll use that in combination with one of the splash damage units he has in his cycle. And so they don't have enough elixir for fireball because he made sure he knew how much elixir they're at after they placed their Royal Giant. So that basically the fireball is useless against that push. He's going to place a Knight against the Fisherman because that hard counters the Fisherman. And it's also a good thing to cycle through his hand. He just baited out their fireball, so now he's going to just keep on cycling through his tank cards until he gets back to barbarians, because he may need to use the barbarians to defend. Uses his rocket to get an extra 400 or 530 damage on their tower. After they change the percentage of tower damage, it's kind of confuses me, but So now he has a push on tower, which also stops the fisherman because the Electro Wizard is what the fisherman's going against right now. So that's great. Now he just took their tower. All he has to do now is make sure that they bait. Oh, and he just baited their fireball. That's what won him the game. He made sure that they just didn't think about the barbarians, and so he could bait their fireball. Twice in a row, they were hard countered by his barbarians because he made sure that their fireball was either they didn't have enough elixir for it, or they just baited out their firecracker. For the third matchup, he is going against Bridge Spam. And you would think, with his deck that uses that Bridge Spam would be quite difficult to counter. But in reality, it's not. He has the Zap of the Electro Wizard plus the multiple tank cards, which deal pretty considerable amounts of damage. And so he is able to counter every push they make. He just makes sure that he can counter their cannon card, which can lock onto the tower and be very deadly, with either a Knight or a Valkyrie. Because that will basically hard counter their cannon card. Let's start the match. With any deck you do in Clash Royale, you need to make sure you count elixir. And also, if you can manage in your mind what they have as their hand, you can basically know what to play in response or on offense or defense to whatever they play. Because if you don't know, for example, that they have a fireball and you place the barbarians on their Royal Giant, you basically they will get multiple hits. So if you think a little bit about what they have in their hand, then you can counter a lot of things that you didn't know you could counter before. So that's what he does here. They get a charge, but he basically counters with the splash of the firecracker. They are low in elixir now, and so he places a counter push of a Knight in front of the firecracker, and so they have to defend it with something. They use a Hunter to defend it, which gets killed. So quite an effective counter push. Now that it's going to get multiple hits, and so that's 2 hits from the Knight. With this deck, if you do heavy defense, then you can always do a counter push and offense with one of the support cards backing it. That's normally what he does to apply pressure to an opponent that just overplayed. They're going to use a cannon card in the back, but that will be countered after it passes the bridge. Whenever you're using this deck, remember, they just missed a fireball. So missing that fireball is deadly because now there's barbarians and the firecracker across the bridge, and that's basically something that can basically kill off any push, and also it's pretty deadly for the opponent as a counter push. And so now he has damage advantage by about 800 damage, and so now he is just biding his time to win the game. He has to defend a counter push because he cycled a Knight in the back. They miss another fireball, predictive fireball, which is really not going well for them. They missed 2 fireballs this whole match, so I don't know what's happening for them. But now he has a counter push because they missed their fireball, so that was a loss of a play. And then also they messed up their attack. They didn't even get a single bit of damage with that giant push they made. So now all he has to do is defend this big push right here. And so he does a Knight in front of this tower. That's a good strategy because the splash damage the radius damage of the Hunter will not really reach much of the tower, but also the Hunter won't be in a big proximity to kill off the Knight super fast. He has to defend this counter push, but he pretty easily defends it, even though they do a predictive fireball. His Electro Wizard helps stop the Battle Ram, and yeah. All that he has left to win is a Royal Giant push plus a surprise rocket. The rocket in this matchup proves him very helpful because he's able to basically just launch the rocket once they don't expect he has anything to get their tower. So he just defends and then he takes out their tower. So now after they're down on elixir, they can't really counter his Royal Giant, and so he's going to get the tower right there. That's the end of the third game. The next game, I'm going to play myself. I'm going to use this deck in a custom challenge. Okay, so I'm going to be doing a ladder battle with this deck. I have a level 11 Electro Wizard and a level 12 Rocket, but those levels should be fine, especially because I can bait out their Fireball now with my Electro Wizard. Let's hop into the match. Okay, so I need to make sure I have a decent hand, and so I do not have a card to cycle in the back unless I'm going to be reacting to something they have. So I'm going to defend this with a barbarians. So now they have to go do something against these barbarians. That's going to prove annoying, but I'm going to probably just let it slip. Okay, they have hog, they have arrows, and they have log. Okay, that's not too bad. Okay, Electro was in the back. They won't have a third spell. If they have a third spell, honestly, this is a mad person, huh? Oh my gosh, they have a third spell. That's crazy. Okay, I'm gonna do a counter push after my Valkyrie kills their hog. That's crazy. 3 spells. What the heck is that? Now I can defend with Firecracker. Okay, now they have to defend, and they didn't kill my Firecracker with that, so that's basically going to be screwing them over. That's what I'm talking about. As long as you use the Royal Giant to basically punish them for overplaying, then you're fine. That, honestly, triple spell's crazy. Okay, I'm going to place a Knight in front because they may have just given up. I think they gave up. Okay, so that was a win, and I kind of showed how to play the deck. I made sure to bait out their spells, which they kind of just spammed. I don't know what they were doing. So, yeah. That's going to end it for the video. I like trying to reach out to people that are very good to show kind of what they're doing right and how to play like them, and it was fun doing this video. Thank you to Dread Unlock for being featured on the channel today. Appreciate that you listen to me reaching out to you. And so I will link your Twitter down in the comment section, or not the comment section, the description down below. And also I will show what your Twitter is, somewhere else, okay? See you guys next video. Any video ideas are appreciated.